All right, let's talk about Jacksonville with the Jets. And we usually preview the Thursday game a little later in the show, but I'm losing sleep over this, Dave. It was hard enough before the weather became a thing.
Wait a minute. What game were we talking about?
Oh, it's a Thursday night.
No.
And I'm genuinely very excited for this game. I hope I can get all my work done and in time to just sit back and watch it.
It's a playoff game.
Yeah, it's a huge game. And I was, stressing out about it enough before the weather, but it could be very ugly, rainy Thursday night in this area. So I don't know. Give me just your overall thoughts on Jacksonville with the Jets. Do you think the Jaguars are going to be good offensively?
Well, the potential for heavy rainfall, which is what was in the forecast as of last night, makes me nervous. And the winds being between 15 to 25 miles an hour, make me nervous as well. I was on board with the Jaguars, even in a tough matchup against the Jets. Being able to throw the ball and get some numbers through the air. Their run game really only started to get going last week for the first time in it feels like a month and a half that they've really been able to have a semblance of a run game going. And if they can't throw and if they can't run, I mean, do the math. They're not going to score a lot of points, and the Jets should find a way to win. If the weather is as bad as the forecast is, I think you got to downgrade both Christian Kirk and Zay Jones. I know Zay Jones has been a hero, at least 14 PPR points in 4 of his past 5 games. He looked great last week. It was maybe his best game ever. Just awesome route running, didn't drop any passes, was separating from coverage. He really looked like a number 1 wide receiver. It's a tougher matchup this week. And I say that not lightly. I think that Trayvon Diggs is good, but he was separating from Diggs. But I'm telling you, weather is going to be something that's going to spook me a little bit. So I downgraded both those guys. Kirk more of a low-end number 2 wide receiver. Zay Jones a flex. Ingram you're starting as a fantasy tight end because who else are you going to start? And Trevor Lawrence a low-end starter because of the weather.
So I'm stressed. Trevor Lawrence and Tom Brady. I would almost feel better about Brady if Colt McCoy were going to play because I'm just a little worried that the Bucs don't blow anyone out. They haven't blown anyone out since week 1 and 2. They had 2 double-digit point wins. Since then, they barely ever win. And when they do, it's close. But I have very little faith in Arizona of McSorley as the starting quarterback. So, if you get the normal 40-plus pass attempts from Brady, I think he can get you in the 21-point range. He barely ever gets more than that. I'm worried about a dud from Trevor Lawrence. So right now I'm really on the fence. How do you feel about that matchup? That comparison, Lawrence versus Brady, Lawrence versus Minshew, Daniel Jones, that kind of stuff.
Man, they're all in the same range, and I've got Lawrence at the top of the range, but there's probably going to be a move down for Lawrence. Will he go past Brady? Maybe. I hear you on Brady all the way. I still think he's going to attempt around 30 passes and have a shot to get a couple of touchdowns.
30? That's terrible for him.
For him, that's bad.
Because
he's had over 40 in 4 straight in pretty much every game this year.
Almost every game he's over 40. Now, we'll talk about this later in tough calls, but the 2 blowout, 2 double-digit wins that the Bucs have been the only 2 low pass volume games of the season, basically for Brady. But that was all the way back in weeks 1 and 2. So Lawrence.
Well, he had low volume against Seattle, didn't he? Wasn't that a game he had low volume in?
Maybe. But it's few and far between. But anyway. Lawrence, Seattle game. Where was that?
He was 22 of 29.
Right. And
it was his only game under 40 pass attempts where he had multiple touchdowns.
So anyway, I don't want to talk too much about Brady.
Fine.
Geno Smith or Lawrence?
Geno.
Lamar Jackson or Lawrence?
Currently Lawrence.
Okay.
I mean, we don't even know if Lamar's going to play.
ETN or Zonovan Knight. You want to start either of these guys?
I think I'm going to end up leaning towards Zonovan.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I have some discouraging stats about the Jets. Okay. How about they are 16th in plays per game, but they're number 1 in plays per game when Zach Wilson doesn't play. And they average, I don't know, maybe around 60 plays per game when he does play. They just are so bad when Zach Wilson plays. He has thrown more than 4 passes to his running backs in only one of his 8 starts. That was my bad Zonovan Knight stat.
I've
He just
got
doesn't know.
another one.
So it's all going to be rushing, and the Jaguars' rushing defense isn't that bad. I mean, they do give up a lot of points, touchdowns to running backs, but
Sure, and that's what you're hoping for with Zonovan.
Yeah, why him over ETN?
Just because I think he might do more on the limited opportunities that he gets. Don't quote me on it. Put it in pencil.
All right.
Yeah, I thought ETN looked better last week than he had in the previous month before, but I still think this is a tough defense.
Yeah. Would you start Zach Moss over them?
I'm not ready to do that. No. Okay. Without Zach Wilson, the Jets running backs are averaging almost 5 yards per carry this season. They have a higher rate of 5+ yard plays and 12+ yard rushing plays than they do with Zach Wilson. And with Zach Wilson, I said it was 5 yards per carry, just about 5 yards per carry without him. With him, 4.1 yards per carry.
Garrett Wilson, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. How do you rank them?
As of now, I have it ranked Kirk, Wilson, Zay. I'm thinking it's going to end up looking like Kirk, Zay, Garrett Wilson. Because you go back and you watch the throws that Wilson had last week. A lot of them were deep passes. This is a nod to the weather. If the weather's bad and if there's significant wind, I don't see how that ball is going to travel the same way as it did last week for the Jets. So I'm getting cold feet about the weather already. Hopefully the weather holds off in this game and it's just cold and there isn't much wind and all the players will be good to go. And this is a game that I think everybody can really wait to see on because it's the first game of the week and you can make your lineup decisions based on the weather that night.
But when you say good to go, let's say the weather was, in December in New York, let's say it was 80 degrees and sunny or 70 degrees and sunny.
It's never going to be that in New York.
Oh, 5 mile per hour. Let's say weather wasn't a factor. Let's say we're in a dome. How much would you like these guys to begin with here? Because obviously you got the elite cornerbacks for the Jets, and look at the last few weeks and what Justin Jefferson had 45 yards and a touchdown. Tyreek Hill had 37 yards. St. Brown had 7 for 76. So how much would you like them, even if the weather weren't a factor?
I think they'd all be number 2 receivers. They'd all find a way to be top 24. Kirk would be my favorite of the bunch. And I know I'd go Wilson over Zay in non-PPR. I'd probably lean toward Zay over Wilson in full PPR.
Okay. Would you start DeAndre Hopkins over these guys?
Yeah. As nervous as I am about Trace McSorley, the answer is yes.
Would you start Christian Watson over these guys? And I'm picking good weather guys.
Yeah. It's going to end up being Watson over these guys if the weather's bad. If weather wasn't an issue, Kirk definitely over Christian Watson. Probably Garrett Wilson and Zay Jones over him too in full PPR.
Yeah, Ingram I think is. My confidence starting him, I don't know. He has 14 or more PPR fantasy points in 3 straight games. But
right, that basically makes him the number 2 tight end in fantasy right now.
The Jets are better against receivers than they are against tight ends. They're 16th against tight ends. They have allowed a touchdown to a tight end in each of the last 2 games. One of them was a 51-yard catch and run by Brock Wright. So not something you can rely on there. Do you, in general, want to avoid Knight and ETN? I know I asked you who you like better, but do you want to avoid them?
We can't pick and choose at this point in the season. Running backs are falling off. In DFS, I wouldn't want to use them. I'll take that back. If the weather's really bad, I'm definitely going to use them in DFS. Regular weather conditions, I'd probably stay away from Knight, not from ETN.
So what about?
I think the Jets are going to end up. If the weather's terrible, I think both teams are going to try and just grind it out and not really throw that much. And I think that favors Zonovan Knight and the Jets.
Would you start Jerick McKinnon over these running backs?
Yeah, I'm ready to do that.
Would you start Cam Akers or Latavius Murray in their matchup? They're facing each other.
I kind of like Latavius. I'm not so big on Cam Akers.
Okay, so you'd start Latavius over ETN and Knight?
If the I think I'm going to start Latavius over them. Yes.
All right. Najee's over ahead of them. Miles Sanders, Kamara. I'm sure Kareem Hunt would be if Nick Chubb were out. Okay. And then would you start Christian Kirk or Devontae Smith?
Goddard's coming back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Minshew's under center, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will probably go with Kirk.
Okay, we're in a dome for that game, though. What a pain in the ass this is. I'm not gonna lie.
Listen, I was telling everybody who would listen yesterday that it's almost going to be useless to give fantasy advice before the games start.
Yeah, I know.
Or what you have to do is you have to do what I've been doing for the last 5 minutes, and that's ramble your way through 2 separate scenarios.
Yeah.
One if the weather's terrible, and one if the weather's good.
I think I'm just gonna cancel the starter sit episodes this week.
Let's just bring on 17 different meteorologists and also bring alcohol.
I mean, you could just target guys. These are the good games this week. The games that aren't going to be affected by weather. Giants at Vikings, Washington at San Francisco, Eagles at Cowboys, Packers at Dolphins. Oh, all of the Sunday games. That's good. Packers, Dolphins, Broncos, Rams, Bucks, Cardinals. And the
Yay, Broncos,
game,
Rams.
Chargers, Colts. So I hope you have like Keenan Allen this week. Just all right, let's see. Am I missing anything from this game? Not like Corey Davis, Tyler Conklin. We don't care about them. Where'd you end up with Zach Wilson?
He is currently ranked as a top 20 quarterback, pending the freaking weather. I can't recommend him if it's terrible weather. Like literally last week, it felt like 1 out of every 3 passes was good. 1 out of every 3 passes were terrible. And 1 out of every 3 passes was a deep ball that he just prayed would be caught by someone with a green helmet.
How ridiculous. After he throws that interception, which was obviously just a really bad play,
yeah.
The throw he made that was caught by Michael Carter, that little lollipop throw.
Yeah.
I mean,
there were a bunch of plays that were kind of like
that after the interception. That's
hey,
learn your lesson, man. All right. DSTs.
You could be encouraged to start the Jets or the Jaguars DSTs if the weather's terrible. But I'd rather start the Lions DST, Bucks DST. I could bring up my rankings and give you a couple of others.
No, that's all right.
That's the idea.
Good DSTs. My big takeaway, Dave, is that if the weather isn't a big factor, if it's just rainy and cold and there's not a lot of wind, like normal rain, 40-degree weather, because it might not be that bad.
I hope it's not.
Yeah, if it's not that bad, it seems like you're pretty optimistic about the Jaguars passing game.
I am, because they've earned it. They've played well for the past several weeks. Zay Jones and Christian Kirk have both done well in their roles. Obviously, Zay Jones playing in a bigger role. Same thing with Evan Ingram. It's hurting Christian Kirk a little bit, but that's a nice trio. It's working out for them, and I love how Trevor Lawrence has been playing, and he's been getting better as the games go on. There is one thing that we should note. His starting left tackle is out for the year, so they are going to go with a backup there. Against other opponents, it would be really bad news. Against the Jets, it's just regular bad news.